Yeah. Go ahead.
Those supposed to be,
Intro.
those supposed to be somber.
It is somber enough, but you did something before we started on the air that made me stop and think. I'm gonna get serious in a minute. I just
All right. Well, in the case though, this is YNB Collins, and I'm joined with.
Brother Wolf here.
We are the Benchmark Podcast, where we try to take life experience, critical thinking, put them together, get a better answer for us all. Right?
This is true.
We had a viewer request, so this is dedicated to this viewer. Excuse me. Try again. We had a listener request, and this is dedicated to that listener. So, Trey, thank you for donating to the podcast. You donate, we can go ahead and try and do a topic for you. We appreciate you listening to us, Trey. We appreciate your time, and we will try to go ahead and do the best we can. Trey wanted to go ahead and have us talk about HIV, which is distinct because Trey is currently diagnosed with it. And at this point in my life, as a 41-year-old man, growing up in the 80s as a kid, not understanding the brevity of the epidemic, but understanding how serious it was to some level, knowing at one point it was defined as a death sentence. I think that's a fair statement.
Definitely.
And nowadays it's rather manageable. We've got a long way to go. And he wanted us to talk about a few things, but what we're going to talk about is the social stigma attached to HIV, how you deal with it as a non-HIV diagnosed individual, and what we can do to make it better for everybody. So there's tons of ways we can go about this, but I think when we did the Jameis Winston episode, we watched Flimlo Raps as a sort of a prep for it. And Flimlo Raps made a very good point in which he said, part of the problem is that when people see somebody else's point of view, you get biased before you even understand what the subject is at hand. And I actually want to address that. I want to talk about what your first experience with HIV may be if it's not personal. So what I mean is, what media have you consumed that HIV was a primary topic? I took some time to think off the cuff. I came up with 1, 2, 3 movies, 2 TV series, the comedy special, the series, and 1 song.
And the interesting thing was, I want to say this, based off of the media in which he said, I had only been familiar with 2 of the movies. I had never been familiar with one of the movies, one of the TV series that was that heavily featured it. I hadn't been familiar with a lot of the different things, and it is pretty interesting media in order for you to go ahead and watch. I definitely want to say that because I'm going to go watch some of this myself when I get done recording.
So yeah, so 1 is the Dallas Buyers Club. Pretty damn good movie. Philadelphia.
I haven't seen that one.
Damn good movie. If you
I have seen that one.
A young Tom Hanks and Denzel Washington in the same movie. It's already
At
happened.
their best, at their prime, you know.
Not at their prime. They weren't at their prime yet.
Oh, they weren't at their prime?
No.
It felt like that was the beginning of their prime. It really did.
I would say it's what made people pay attention to them. It didn't go ahead and officially cement them on the map.
Okay.
I mean, we could argue that later, but the point at hand is kids.
Yeah.
The TV series Pose, and ER, the long-running TV show, had a very small stint where one of the PAs had HIV. Eddie Murphy Raw, he talked about it. You know what I mean? And then the HBO special and the band played on because it had documentary vibes. That's how most people knew about what the virus was. Then you have one of my favorite rappers, Immortal Technique, You Never Know, featuring Jean Grey. Now, that's just media that you just consume for a second. But people who are in the spotlight, we have Eazy-E, Billy Porter, Rock Hudson, Greg Louganis, Freddie Mercury, Charlie Sheen, Jermaine Stewart. And this is not everybody. But I think the most famous, and this is why I believe HIV is not a concern anymore, is because at one point I believe it is safe to say Magic Johnson was the spokesperson for HIV.
Yes.
Because, and we all know the line, you can live through anything if Magic made it.
Yeah.
And because Magic had the money to afford the cocktails, because of investments and so on, Magic was able to live a fulfilled life and is still living a fulfilled life, and was the proof that, hey, we could possibly beat this. Like, say it with me, the science works.
Yeah.
At one point, which was a death sentence, 40 years now, it is highly managed as a chronic disorder, disease, whatever the official designation is.
And I do want to say this. You know, some people, when it comes to these kinds of situations, like if it's a person like Magic, what he could have done was he could have been like, I'm going to use my fortune and my money, and I'm just going to hog all of this to myself, and I'm going to live forever myself. I ain't going to worry about nobody else or anything like that. But instead, what he did was he started being the spokesperson. He started going out there, getting resources gathered for study and research of different treatments and different cures for it. He was a big proponent in forwarding and getting that going forward. And I think that that's something that, you know, we can say that, oh, well, you know, Magic made it and everything like that, but he didn't just make it. He also made other people make it with him.
He paved the way, yeah.
He definitely paved the way, and that's something that isn't done a lot.
And one of the things why it's so distinct and important to list these people is because it affected all levels of society. At first, it was thought that this was only, and there's a very moralistic standpoint where if you contracted HIV, you were either homosexual or a drug user. That was it. People didn't know to go ahead and check the blood transfusions. Or the fact that if you had sex with a prostitute, if the prostitute was doing something else, you got it from the prostitute, even though you engaged in quote-unquote normative behaviors. And that's what made it so stigmatizing, because unwanted minorities were a part of the standing of disease, and we let the label preclude the argument, and that was one of the problems we had with HIV.
I mean, it's still, even at this point, according to the recent stats, it still showed like 66% of it was in the African American community, as it's going right now. But that would underscore the possibility of it being other places, because it is. That means what, the other 34% are in other people, and that's not a small percentage in the long run.
And well, not only that, the problem is who's actually getting tested.
Yeah, and that's another thing.
We can extrapolate to a certain point, but because we know that the virus can remain dormant for a certain amount of time, you might not be able to detect it, or even worse, if you don't know to detect it because you're not doing anything. So one of the things that concern me is, as a bartender, I have access to a large swath of people, and I can ask them a question, and it's bartender small talk, but I can't tell you how many times I've just learned from life, or sometimes I do things for the podcast, but there's a definitive age difference in how the disease is viewed. And what I mean by that is, if you're my age and older, you remember when it was a death sentence and you still treat it with, I don't want to say reverence, but a healthy fear and respect. Kids nowadays, the negative consequence from sex is baby herpes, HIV. And mind you, this is a anecdotal survey. This is not scientific in any manner, but generally speaking to kids, they're more worried about that. I mean, to quote the generation that eats the booty like groceries, I mean, we got to be aware of what we're doing and why we're doing it and what's going to happen as part of these results. Are we,
say it with me? There are consequences and repercussions
to your actions.
Yeah.
And if you're not addressing them, we're going to go ahead and perpetuate this disease. And, the point was making originally is the fact that we have all these individuals who are every walk of life, but Charlie Sheen is another example of someone who was famous, engaged in poor behaviors, and as a result, consequences caught up to him.
Definitely.
And mind you, it's not that I want this to happen, but we have to be aware of what happens and why it happens. And why is this a concern for you, the everyman? Well, to put it simply, Brother Wolf is the family man of us, right? He's got kids. He has to educate them. If he doesn't, he did a piss poor job of being a father. You know?
Absolutely.
And as a single man in the bar, I have to go ahead and, as a bar goer, tender and patron, I wouldn't mind having some fun, but I'm not trying to get a death sentence at the same time. I'm not trying to go ahead and get child support one way or another, whether it be through a perpetual life of cocktails or through, an actual being that I brought into this world through careless behavior.
I mean, from what I'm thinking, as a bartender, you're kind of a poor man's psychiatrist. Just being honest with you.
Been that way, gonna stay that way, yeah.
And so, with that being said, you have plenty of people that go up to you and ask you for advice.
Agreed.
And so, the thing would be, as part of your advice, I don't know how many. I don't, because I haven't been in the bar scene for a long time.
You was called a family man. Yeah, you're not supposed to.
Exactly. Because of that, I don't know what it seems like these days. But are there situations where a young man might go up to you and have been like, "Hey, there's this girl at the bar. What do you think?" And everything like that. Are there any kind of situations like that happen these days?
I came into the bar that I worked at one day. I got off from another job, went to the bar that is home base to go ahead and relax, have a drink, and so forth. And a patron I know, he was getting to the finish line with somebody. Oh my God. I don't have any right now. Please say you have a condom. Here. You know what I mean? And I don't know.
You may have saved his life. You never know.
Yeah. And I don't know if people remember back in the day when there used to be a jar of condoms at the bar.
The barber. when HIV/AIDS was in its, peak as far as, people getting knowledge of it being widely out there in public view, the barber that you would go to would have him in a fishbowl. I know my brother knows what I'm talking about. In a fishbowl right there on the counter. Anybody could go in there, grab a handful of them, put them in their pocket, and keep on, and nobody would say anything different. Word. They'd just be like, "Go ahead, young blood. Bye."
Yeah. Look, whatever you're doing, making sure you're making better decisions. You know what I mean? So that way you don't have to deal with back-end consequences. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Right.
And this is one of those cases where, to quote Paul Wall, I strapped up twice because I don't want to be in bed getting burned like Usher. That was one of the funniest lines. I'd love to go ahead and dap Paul Wall off of that line. But, let it burn? No, we're not going to let it burn. But, so we now know, to try and tie it together, we have this disease that we thought we knew something about it, that we didn't know something about it, but come to find out, there's still stuff we're learning about it. So speaking with a few people I know who are HIV positive, the age gap. If you're above this age, you're kind of hesitant to engage with some HIV behaviors. Other times, you don't even know or even care. It's not even on the radar.
Right.
And one of the things that I ask people in this unscientific survey, I ask people random questions. And one of the questions I asked is, if you knew someone who was actively being treated, who was HIV positive, actively taking the treatments necessary, and they were what's the term? It's undetectable, which means it's non-transmittable. If you knew somebody who was undetectable, would you go ahead and eat after them? Would you have sex with them? Would you engage in any other potentially risky activity? And depending on the level of risk, some people said yes, some people, the pause said everything. And that's damning and eye opening as well. And I get it. And you, self preservation's a thing. I get it. But are we being self preservative, or are we going ahead and falling askew to norms and taboos because it's convenient because we don't want to be the kids that's picked on?
Oh, wow.
Like, we can go ahead and, like, we're not supposed to make fun of somebody who's handicapped. Well, isn't this technically a handicap? Just going off of norms, mores, and taboos. Speaking bluntly and plainly here. You know, like, to see what it does to people. Another friend of mine, he told me once he got his diagnosis, just like in Dallas Buyers Club, oh, you got me mixed up with somebody else, take the blood again, do another test, and it kept coming back the same way. And this guy told me for 6 years did not address the issue at hand. 6 years. 6 years. Now, the man behind the mask, he was in his master's program and he did a report on bug chasing. I might have referenced it before. I don't know which ones have gotten published at this point. But bug chasing, and there are scholarly articles on this, bug chasing is the thrill seeker who intentionally has sex with someone who has or potentially has HIV. And some people are trying to play Russian roulette and not contract it. Some people are looking to contract it. Some people are looking to spread it and propagate it.
So is bug chasing just HIV, or is it any STD? Because I thought it might have been any STD, but it's just HIV.
Well, remember R. Kelly with The Closet?
Yeah.
And how everybody got the package? When it comes to sexually transmitted infections or diseases, depending on, or venereal disease, whatever you want to call it, HIV got the bug as the term.
Okay.
It was one of the nicknames for it. So it typically refers to HIV. It could theoretically be anything, but it's typically HIV.
So there's a person on there's a person on YouTube. I won't mention the person right now because I don't know how widely it's known. But
so should we even be saying this?
Well, yeah, because once you hear it, you're gonna know that, oh well, it could be anybody. He's not really spotlighting anybody, but there is a person that it has come forward that they may have HIV. And on all of their different message boards and everything, to get under the radar of their mods catching it, because this person, they did research and they found out this person may have HIV and may be unintentionally giving it to people because they just don't care enough in order to let people know.
Yeah, I mean, there's been Abba and Preach had a few years ago where they had some people like, it's none of their business what I have, and I'm like, but you're engaging in it. And I mean, people forget that criminalization of transmit is still a felony.
So this person has what they nickname a home in Virginia. That's what they call it on the internet. That's what they use. Home in Virginia.
That means you are HIV positive.
Yes. And so one thing that they say is that what we're saying there, they're like, yeah, a lot of people have homes in Virginia. And then what winds up happening is every now and then a person comes on the message boards and be like, that person ain't got no home in Virginia. I've been looking for it. And
you serious? Oh, my. This is like the simpletons version of Pizzagate.
Yeah, basically it's like that. But yeah, like you said, they use just certain code words and certain things in order to go ahead and spotlight that fact. I was just bringing that into light.
So here's something I'm gonna ask you, because as a bartender and as someone who has seen a lot of what places have to offer, I am aware of individuals who are HIV positive. Some are in the kink community, some are in the LGBTQ plus. I always mess it up, but the larger the under the rainbow flag. I know a lot of people who have come down with HIV. Some friends, some family, some just acquaintances. How many people do you know?
So here's the thing, knock on wood, I do not know anybody who has come out and said, "Hey, I have it." I don't know
Not a
anybody,
person.
not a single person who now I know people through you. I know people through my brother that have it. But as far as me, you know, with my direct contacts of people who I have spoken to for several times, not just one or two times, meeting them through my brother, I can say I haven't really ran into anybody that has said it out loud that, hey, I have it. And some people do, some people don't. I understand that. Unless they were putting me in direct danger, I understand why they wouldn't say it. And if I was not in direct danger, I wouldn't blame them for not saying it to me.
Yeah.
And I understand that. Let me make that clear. But at the same point in time, no, I haven't heard anybody, or even heard to be honest with you, I haven't even heard anybody say or a rumor that anybody else has had it, and that is something. Now, the one thing that I will also say is, being at my job as a person that works
Retail company.
at a retail company that does sell drugs, I will say that I have met people that are in treatment for that. And those people that are in treatment for it, they are extremely careful with who knows that they have it.
Yeah.
They to say that these are the people who HIPAA, I believe, was fully invented for is an understatement. Because I mean, most other people will be all out loud. Hey, you got them little blue pills for me? Yeah, you know the ones I'm talking about. Talking to the people in the back of the line. Hey, yeah, they got my blue pills.
Peacocking, anyone? Emphasize on the last part of the word.
You know, they have certain people that for their conditions, they are out front and center for that. People with diabetes, you know, they're like, oh, you know, you got my Ozempic or my Trulicity or something like that. Metformin, you know, anything like that. They are out there for it. But people with that particular condition, specifically, they talk to you in a very quiet and low voice, and they want you to keep your voice down and keep your voice quiet with it. Even with the fact that, in my mind, I believe the stigma for the most part is gone. They must be having to do with some kind of internal stuff that they know, and I'm not them, so I don't know exactly what they're going through in their lives. But they still keep under the radar about it immensely. They are very protective over it, over their diagnosis with it, you know, for the regular level.
Well, I mean, there's the idea that you have to opt in or buy into the package. You have to look a certain way, dress a certain way, so forth and so on. And at this point, HIV is not accepted yet as a totality of the circumstance. Like, case in point, remember when tattoos were a death sentence for getting a job?
Yeah.
Now, if you see somebody who doesn't have tattoos, they're the ones outside the norm.
Now, I do happen to know of several people that still wear, but they're in our age group, still wear the arm sleeves that cover up certain things and everything like that. But yeah, that.
And I mean, I guess that's the concern that we have, is the stigma that's associated with it. Why do we have it? Should we still have it? And, you know, so let me go ahead and be the everyman and put it into my situation. I go ahead, I meet a fine little chickadee. We're a little too drunk. We go ahead and do the daggone thing, and next thing you know, bam, Sir, we need to speak to you behind these curtains. You are now HIV positive. No, I'm not. I protect myself every time, knowing full and hell well, and I challenge everyone who listens, everyone. When's the last time you got your entire AIDS test? And the reason why I say that, what did Chris Rock say a long time ago? Took my AIDS test, passed it, got a 69. You're not supposed to get a number, Chris. This is pass fail. Numbers are questionable.
Everybody hates Chris.
But the point I'm getting at is you now have this, you're dealing with it. How do you act? Do you go ahead and embrace it and say, okay, this is a new part of my life? Do you keep the spread up? Do you spiral out of control, self-medicating, as the Dallas Buyers Club was showing, where you go from using horrible drugs to better drugs to the community treatment that you needed all along? I mean, I'm going to quote Dave Matthews every day. So all we need is love. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's somebody you probably know who has or had it that's not doing what they need to do. And the reason why I brought up the opt-in part is every state is different. But in the state of Louisiana, where we're located, if you go for a panel, you have to opt in for hepatitis, herpes, and HIV. So when you get back a clean panel, you're not clean, you're clean enough. But that doesn't mean you're appropriately clean. You need to go ahead and get everything to know. And I challenge everybody here. How recent are your condoms? Are they dry rotted like in House Party? You know, when's the last time you've gotten a panel so you can make sure you're doing better? You know, we always want to talk about everybody else, but when's the last time we did it? Why is this not a more... When I go get an annual checkup, if doctors are so willing and ready to go ahead and put the finger on my behind, why can't I go ahead and have a drug test ready for me to go ahead and say, okay, you're clear on all this stuff, sir? Am I wrong, brother? Brother,
no, you are 100% right.
If we're so concerned about making sure we do this, what's wrong with putting up $100,000 in this doctor's office? You come into this doctor's office, free HIV test. Now, one thing I will give LADH, Louisiana Department of Health and DHH, Department of Health and Hospitals, if you go on their website, you can order a free HIV test. That's the first step, is going ahead and getting the monitoring done to see where you stand and why you stand. And so that way you can still live a full life. What did I just say earlier? You can live through anything if magic made it. Mm-hmm. At this point, every commercial I've seen in regards to PrEP or Bounce to Zero or something of that nature, insurance is not a necessity. The medications are available and affordable. And yes, you will have to change your lifestyle some, but you probably should have did that anyway.
Right.
So what's stopping
you? 100% right.
I mean, you have something on your mind. I see the gleam in your eye right now. What's going on in Brother Wolf's mind in regards to this?
Well, I was just thinking about the fact of the connection in between COVID, which is just a disease connection between COVID and HIV, and the fact how in these situations, really, the world seems to come together. In very few instances, the world comes together, but in these type of diseases, it happens, and it really is like a blessed moment that it lets you know that it's possible that we may have a future as humanity. We might have a future as humanity. It's not that likely because of other reasons.
I always quote Arnold, Terminator 2. We're not going to make it, are we? It's in your nature to destroy yourselves. It's painful, you know what I mean? And I'm hoping we can rise above. And I'm hoping Gandhi's statement of, if there's a few drops of dirt in the ocean, you do not throw it all away. Humanity's like the ocean. You do not condemn it all. You know what I mean? I hope that be the case. I really do.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. The history of HIV, the history of COVID. I go even further to say the history of like smallpox, the history of certain diseases like that. The world has shown that in these instances it can step up, and it's up to us in order to realize that these things are out here to stop us from killing ourselves basically, and to take care of ourselves, and that's the important thing. We have so much stuff to worry about. Why would we worry? Why would we have to worry extra about medical stuff that we have, that we have resources available to us for? The mental health situation is at an all time high, and there just don't seem to be enough resources for that. You go there, you get your medications for that. You do your prevention for HIV. You get your medications for HIV. You get that out of the way, so we have one less thing to worry about in this world, because we have so much to worry about in this world as it is mentally. Yeah, I'm serious. So this is one thing that you can take care of. That the world gives you nothing, but the world gives you this. So
And the world will take everything too. Let's not forget.
exactly. So please take care of yourself. Get tested. Get treatment if you have it. Be preventative. Do what you have to do, because there's too much out there.
And I'm glad you did that so I could segue to this one. Uh, Part of what we've been talking about so far is the stigma that's associated with it. Where does stigma come from? Bad information. So it's like when you take advice from your single friends and wonder why you still single yourself.
I remember several times there've been people that said, HIV, didn't they cure that? I know there have been several times in which I've heard people say those words throughout my life. And I just have that look at them like,
all right, wasn't ready for that one.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is one of the most important things you could do is get in touch with a medical professional immediately to see where you stand, to see what can you do, what's immediately that can be done, what resources are close by, how you may need to change your life, and so forth and so on. And with that said, I'm going to throw it back to you, because as a bartender, I typically don't expect to change grown people's mind. I don't. I serve you your drinks, and if we come to a disagreement, that's it. I'm not sitting there wasting my time with that. But you, as a father, as a family man, have a bigger responsibility. So what do you teach your children? Whether question number one: do you treat your male children and female children differently?
No. In this society, you can't.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
And do you treat? How do you deal with the age difference for those who are sexually active and those who still don't know what sex is yet?
The important thing is you never know in actuality whether or not your child is sexually active. You don't know. So you have to always treat it as though, teach them responsibility, teach them to, the most important thing, the first thing out of all situations is to be careful with who they make the decision to give their body to. That is the most important thing. That is the first thing, is that it is more important that is 51% of the battle.
So what's the other 49?
Now, the other 49% is making sure you're protected, making sure that you are, taking the right precautions for different steps, following through later on and finding out if whatever diseases or anything like that you may have procured from that comes after you do the important part, which is whoever you are going to be sexually active with, do as much research as you can before you do, because we could get completely through all of this stuff. You could not get a disease and you could still fuck up, because this person, even if you don't get pregnant, still is a fuck up. And so, and this person you will be with for a long time, even these days, even under situations where it's don't get pregnant, don't get a disease from them, you still might be with them for a while because one day either you decided to give your body to this person in one way or another, and it doesn't matter. And here's the thing: I always talk about. You know, my wife always asks me this, and I say the same thing. I don't care if they're with a man or a woman, as long as they're happy. That's the first thing. If they're with somebody that makes this world not make them feel lonely, then I'm okay with that. Now, with that being said, if they're not happy, if they are with a man or a woman that they're supposed to, that they're conventionally, I shouldn't say supposed to, conventionally are with, and they're miserable, I don't want them to be in that relationship, period. And so that's the key. But like I said, it has worked for me, just convincing my children that, hey, be careful who you decide to have your body shared with. Be careful who it is that you decide to do that with. That's helped me.
Has it ever backfired to you?
It mm, no, I can't say it backfired. I can't say it had unexpected results.
I mean, there's got to be a few people who want to. Can you share this without going too far, or
I mean, it's not really. It thankfully it hasn't had completely bad results ever happening. They have always had experiences where they learn from it, whoever it is. But like I said, the key thing is just remembering that if they are careful with who they choose to be involved with, the rest of this becomes a whole lot easier.
I mean, one of the things I think that is unsaid, but we need to realize when it comes to STIs. Back in the day, you know, when you had the clap, you went to the doctor, got your penicillin, your whatever cyclin, and you get cleared that up. Nowadays, the game is up. It's go hard or go home, you know. And like I said, when it comes to the opt-ins, once you have those, you have those. There's no getting around that. And that's the ugly truth that people don't want to. We're so used to the do-over society that when we finally can't do it over, we don't know how to act. Call of Duty, we got extra lives, we respawn. Bankruptcy, you can go ahead and clear it all out and do it again. You know what I mean? Divorce. How many husbands did Elizabeth Taylor have? Henry VIII, he just kept going. You know what I mean?
Oh, he had. They did an autopsy on his body and found out he had so many damn diseases. Yeah, he was nasty.
But the point I'm making is that boom, now we got to the point where it's one and done. One mess up changes everything. It truly changes it, you know? And that's, I guess that's part of the stigma, part of the concern as to why people don't want to engage. And if people don't know, and when you what you said earlier in regards to people saying you cured it, I believe it. I don't want to believe somebody said that stupid shit, but I wonder how much stuff gets circulated in communities, reinforced, and when it comes time for actual fact, it takes years to crack through this veneer.
I mean, let's say, what if I didn't break their experience by saying that no, they didn't cure it yet? Let's say, what if I reinforced that thought and said, yeah, they cured it? How many times did a person reinforce that thought and continue it going? What kind of societal breakdown has that contributed to?
I don't know. I don't even want to think about that one. But I will ask you this one, going back to the barbershop. Do you give condoms to your kids?
Yes.
Okay. And the reason I bring this up is when you have the highly conservative moralistic standpoint of, well, you're not supposed to be having sex before you marry. Well, we got to remember that sex is not the only way to catch HIV. There's multiple ways, but it's at this point I would almost say it's the prevalent way. I don't think it's the best way, but I mean this is one of those I need more data to show what it is. We know it's through IV use, through bodily fluids, you know, but not much else.
Yeah, and the funny thing is nowadays people aren't sharing needles the way in which they used to. And I'm just saying that because it is cheaper now to get needles than what it used to be.
Oh yeah,
You could get a pack of you can get a pack of needles from different stores for somewhere around under $2.
yeah, and I mean,
It's cheaper than a honey bun in some places.
ouch. Oh, and what I was going to say concerning that is walking different places in the city, like under the overpass by Earhart, under down by the CBD. There are times you see all those little orange caps, and if you know what the orange caps mean, you know what's going on. So I step very lightly. I want to make sure I'm not finding anything I don't want to. You know.
I mean, there's times in which, in the back of my store, I want to wear steel toe shoes. Be quite honest with you. But yeah, so
uh, so one of the last things I want to talk about is with Magic not being the spokesperson. I don't know who's another spokesperson for this malady. For New Orleans, there's the Bounce to Zero campaign with LADHH, which we talked about, where Big Frida, our Queen of Bounce, is going ahead and looks to be the spokesperson. And shout out to Frida for doing this to make sure you've got a associated name.
there have been several health campaigns that she's been a really big part of.
And yeah, she's going ahead and making sure she's showing here's what the problem is. Here's how you can get help. No judgment. Get the fucking help you need. Whatever happened, I am sorry. But we'll be sorrier if we don't address it. And that's the simplistic standard. Doesn't matter where you stand on it morally. It doesn't matter that the house is burning down now. Don't matter who was playing with matches. The point is the house is burning down. Let's get the fire department here to contain it before it gets worse. That's what I think we're trying to make sure people truly do understand. And I mean, it's a vulnerability. When you have the uneducated and people don't know better and preying on your fears, you'll have a lot to do with that, you know? If you came down with it, what do you think you'd do?
I mean, I'd find out what resources were available to treat it as early as possible.
Let me rephrase. I said that wrong. So you answered the question how I asked it. You catch the disease. Whom of your friends and family do you tell first? Do you tell?
With me being the kind of person I am, sometimes my wife gets upset at me because I do happen to be a very open person, and I think my brother actually knows this. I would be probably by, I'd say maybe about a month. Most of the city will know that I have it, because I would probably be the one sitting up there talking about it, because it's who I am. I am a very open person, and I would be communicating to people my experiences with it. That's a blessing and a curse. I might face stigma for it. I might not. But at the end of the day, I know the kind of person I am, and it wouldn't be something. I'm not a person that keeps that kind of stuff inside. I do let that kind of stuff out.
Fair enough. I know I would tell my immediate friends and family. You would know. Rev Ross would know. My parents, if they were alive, they would know. Co-workers, I think I'd give them the right to know. So that way they could be like, oh, if in case something happens, because everybody's gotten a paper cut before. Don't address this, let me address it. You know what I mean? Let me go in the back and address my wounds and move on with that. After that, like I said in Helicopter Money, it's not your business what Collins does or doesn't do, But if you're going to be involved in my life, then it is. So that's one of those things where I don't know because I don't. I'm not saying I'm trying to hide it. I'm saying I'm not very public with all my stuff anyway.
Right. Right.
So
Your answer, I was expecting to be your answer.
ouch, I think.
No, it's not. It's not a bad thing. It's just to say it fell right along with what I would think it would be.
Fair enough. And I wish Rev Ross was here, but he was taken away by the wonderful thing called bills. And what do you do with bills? You have to work to take care of them.
Right.
But yeah, guys, I doing the research for this and intern, you're getting at least no less than 20 links. Show notes. Louisiana DHH, and they had some specific reports to go ahead and check out. We'll go ahead and put notes to some of the resources that I know that are. I mean, every place is going to be different. So if you're living in Australia, if you're living in China, if you're living in
Japan,
if you live in
Taiwan,
Alabama,
Singapore,
wherever it is, you're going to be
Australia,
different.
New Zealand. I'm doing shouts out right now. Canada. Yeah.
If you're living differently, rephrase. If you're living, every place has different resources that are available to them. So having those resources are going to be dependent on where you are. But check with your local Ministry of Health, Department of Health and Hospitals, and you'll probably find some areas. And for anybody who remembers, the No AIDS Task Force now does business as Crescent Care. They have expanded their whole model. So if you are living in the New Orleans area and you have this concern, Crescent Care is the place to go, man. They're the ones who will go ahead and put you right. And like I said, take care of yourself. There's no reason for this fucking foolishness. There's so many options and resources out there. It's one of those, if you want to go ahead and be lonely, it's your call. But don't let others have to go ahead and suffer with you. You know? With that said, you got anything else?
No, brother. I think on this one, it's closing time.
Fair enough, guys. Be safe. Guys, you already know what the game plan is. Let's see.
Thank you for listening to the Benchmark Podcast, a product of Benchmark Media, LLC. We would like to remind our listeners that the views and opinions expressed in this review are strictly the views and opinions of each individual and does not reflect the stance of Benchmark Media. Any opinion stated is not to be construed as professional advice or help. Our intro and outro music is Acid Trumpet by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under the Creative Commons. Remember to contact us at therealbenchmarkpodcast@gmail.com or our website, www.therealbenchmarkpodcast.com. You can follow us on social media on Facebook or Instagram. And if you'd like to be a friend of the show, you can donate to us via our PayPal and buy Collins a drink.